So, was Major Taylor the best cyclist that ever was? No, but what did he do that was different than everybody else? A lot of people are black. Sorry to tell you that. But what's different about his blackness and his sport? Ever to compete in cycling. Now I guarantee there were some black people who raced their bicycles against each other in the streets of Atlanta and the streets of other places in the United States. I can almost guarantee that occurred. However, Major Taylor was the first person to be paid as a cyclist, as an African American. There's another really good story. If you start Googling famous African American leaders, Jackie Robinson, what did he do? Baseball. They never let people of color play baseball. But the coaches saw Jackie Robinson and said, damn, that guy's good. And they said, let's let him play. There was I forget the name of the athlete in the Olympics in Germany before Hitler became in power. Thank you. Jesse Owens. Jesse Owens, yeah. Right, thank you. I need Owens. That's all I needed. Jesse Owens kicked everybody's butt. But the thing is, a lot of young African-American athletes never had a chance to even try to compete because they were never seen as equal. So, something that's really interesting. What does this word contingency mean? Well, that's one way of talking about contingency. So, I just have to tell you this little... Last night, my son was... he was super cranky when he gets home from school. He and I both have a cold. Whenever he gets sick, I get sick. I swear he's like just drinking out of whatever cup I'm drinking out of just to spite me so I get sick whenever he gets sick. So he's got a cold right now. He doesn't feel good. He gets home from school and he's like, ugh. He's growing. He goes, my legs hurt. My feet hurt. He's got one pair of shoes that fit him right now. If anybody needs size 10 shoes, let me know. Anyway, he's up to 11 and a half. He's got the same size shoes that I have. Moron. Anyway, so he's cranky, he's growing, he's full of testosterone, he's full of teenage angst. He is Spider-Man. Anyway, but he's sitting there and he has to come up with a character trait for this stupid character in this book he's reading. They're doing character traits in English and they have to come up with a character trait. Everybody remember this kind of stuff? Yeah. It's hard, especially if you don't want to do it. I was wearing a t-shirt. I have one of my favorite shirts that I have, it's my usually workout morning shirt. It's Wile E. Coyote on it. What's the Fremantle College mascot? The Coyote. And so I really want to have the Acme Fremantle College Psychology Club. Because Wile E. Coyote, the old Bugs Bunny character, everything he bought was from Acme. And there's a great episode where he buys a box of steroids. So his legs get all buff, and he runs after Acme's leg muscle enhancers. Anabolic steroids. Okay, good. Love that. Okay, so now. So he's looking at my shirt and he goes, the character is Wiley. And he sees a little light bulb pop above his head. Anybody know what Wiley actually means? So he goes, the character is Wiley. And he doesn't, I'm like, okay, A, how does this little butt munch know what Wiley means if you college students don't know what Wiley means? And B, why would he think that the character is Wiley? So how would you describe Wile E. Coyote? How would you describe the Bugs Bunny cartoon characters who've ever seen it? Don't make me play some Bugs Bunny for you. You can Google it on your own. If they're all on Hulu or Cartoon Network. He's very determined. He's driven to try to do what? Eat the Roadrunner. Okay, is he smart? Somewhat. He knows a lot of stuff. This is why it's funny for Primo to tell him. But he does lots of stupid In Kumeyaay tradition, a coyote leads by bad example. That's what the coyote represents. Oh, for the coyote, yeah. Oh, the crow's smart and the one that plans and organizes for the future, and the coyote just kind of flails along miserably and teaches everybody by failing. Okay, I didn't come up with a mascot. So, going back, he goes, the character is just like Wile E. Coyote. He's super smart, but he's up to no good. He's evil. So my son figured out what Wile E. means. So I Googled hey Google, what does Wile E. mean? My phone's getting really contemporary. Define Wile E.
According to Merriam-Webster, slide, crafty, wily, tricky, clumsy, artful, seeking, attaining, or seeking to attain what is by guileful or devious means.
Guileful or devious means. Trying to get your solution through all sorts of different possible ways to get it. So my son figured out the contingency of what Wile E. means by watching cartoons. Why do you think he's named Wile E. Coyote? He's wily. That's exactly what he does the entire episode. Why do you think Elmer Fudd is named Elmer Fudd? Think about, when you think of the word Elmer Fudd, is that like a big, tall, handsome guy or a short, squatty guy? Fudd. Okay, so now, the word contingency, okay, the word contingency is this. The word contingency means what will happen if. So, one of my TAs typed up a bunch of your responses, your little stories. Typed up a bunch of your responses. I love how your water bottle goes in the dark when you hold your phone like that. Oh, this goes in. Okay, sorry. That's my ADD. Sorry about that. Okay. So, okay. If you have a contingency in place, here's the one. Student was at elementary school. They wanted to eat the hot lunch. First mistake. Second mistake. They got the little pizzas. They have these little pizzas. They're about this big. It's like an English muffin pizza. You get two on your little tray, and they hand it to you with some, quote, vegetable, unquote, and then you press it, and then you eat it. 30 seconds after eating it, the poor soul barfed all over the table at elementary school. So, what is the contingency that she learned? Well, what did she learn from this? Remember, we're talking about learning and behaviorism. So if you showed her a little mini pizza 2 days later, what would happen? So what is the contingency that she learned? That's what her behavior is, but the contingency, what is the connection that she has? If I eat that pizza, I'll get sick. So her brain skips the whole story and just sees the pizza and feels sick. See how that works? What is the conditioned stimulus in that story? The pizza. The conditioned stimulus was the pizza. What is the thing that caused her to get sick? If the pizza was bad, it would have taken a couple hours to make her sick. You can eat bad food and you're fine for right now. 4 hours later, though, and that bacteria starts to grow, then you get sick. Nice. So do you think she was possibly sick before she ate the pizza? She probably had a stomach bug going before she ate the pizza. Like I've got a little bit of cold last night. Whenever I get congested, I snore really badly. And so I got clobbered by my wife last night, and I should have just slept on the couch to start with, because if I'm snoring, she's not sleeping. And if she's not sleeping, she's grouchy. Okay. Saying. Okay. So I should have just went to sleep on the couch last night, because as soon as I felt this little cold brewing, what do I know is going to happen? I'm going to snore. I just know it. And so because I have a contingency, I can make a prediction of what should happen. Because has it happened in the past? So my consciousness, what we're talking about today, my consciousness understands the contingency. Does my student who barfed out the pizza understand the true contingency? Her stomach flu caused her to get sick. But why does she feel sick when she looks at pizza? Because that's what her consciousness became aware of. Because, this is gross, but if you taste something as you're throwing up, your brain says that made you sick. Your brain says that. Your cerebellum. Remember what the cerebellum is? Timing. Now. Jump now. Okay, that's how you remember it. Jump now. That's the timing. So the cerebellum is just, okay, that stimulus, they happen at the same time. There you go. There's the contingency. But your brain, can you think of different contingencies? Like your brain. Your mind? Can you think of different contingencies? How many people have heard of this? It's called mindfulness. I know Dana has. As a therapist, this is what you teach people. This is how it works. You teach the person to become mindful. Mindful. Does that mean full of mind? I'm so full of mind, I can't even walk. No. So, what is mindfulness? Become conscious of what? Okay, so let's talk about what the word consciousness means. What the word consciousness means. So, how do you know you're conscious? Looking for someone who's sleepy in here right now. I don't see anybody real quick. How do you know you're conscious? Oh, okay. You're sleepy. Wait, no, I'm not. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to make it. But every time, if I watch around, and I'll explain my consciousness in a bit, but if I watch around and I see your eyes do this, why do your eyes go? Lots of different reasons. You could be thinking about something. And for people like myself who get distracted very easily, when I really need to concentrate, I put what I call blinders on. I make sure I get in a space where there's no distraction. And a lot of times I put on music. Why would I put on music when I don't want to be distracted? I know the music. I always put on Old Grateful Dead when I really need to get a lot done. And because I listen to it so many times, I don't listen to it. It just becomes noise. Good noise, but noise. Therefore, I'm not distracted by things outside. If you have a headache, why do you close your eyes? Because the light coming in and your eyeballs moving, ow. If you close your eyes, it gives that little bit of peace. So there's lots of reasons why people close their eyes, but an 8 o'clock class on Monday and Wednesday, that's Wednesday, so it's been a really long week so far, your consciousness might be inhibited by lack of sleep during the week. So actually the lack of sleep over the weekend hits you now. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so how do you know you're falling asleep? when you wake up. Do you know that point when you're actually asleep? Because you're unconscious. So I'm going to draw a little line over here. I'm going to put mindfulness as the top. It's the ultimate consciousness. Mindfulness is the tippy top of your consciousness. So what's all the way down at the bottom of your consciousness? By the way, here's sleep. What's at the bottom? Not dead. Dead's a little down here. It was actually kind of sad, but a good friend of our son passed away this weekend. He had, anybody know Andrew Thompson in here? He's Alpine kid. Anyway, he had a type of bone cancer, and they had it last year, and they did surgery and got rid of the bones that were causing the cancer, and so everything was good, and he was just fine. Then about 8 months later, beginning of the semester, middle of last semester, he got a cold and went to the doctor, and they found that the tumors had started growing in his lungs. And so the cancer metastasized and was all over his body, and they did a bunch of fighting with it, and he lost the fight this weekend. So for the last probably 3 or 4 days of his life, he was in what we call a persistent vegetative state. It's not a natural persistent vegetative state. It was induced by morphine. Why have the person go into this persistent vegetative state? A lot of hospice does this. Well, they're not anticipating him getting better when they put him under those doses of morphine. Yeah, because the pain just gets so much, it's not worth being conscious to experience the pain, because all you can experience in consciousness is the pain. Yeah. Hopefully you never have to get in those space in your life. My mother-in-law, when she passed away, that was the same way. Without being gruesome, did your mom do the same thing with the hospice state, or did she just pass it around? Yeah. And it's just, it's yucky, but at the same time, Andrew was a person of faith. I know your mom was a person of faith. And so when they pass, a lot of people don't see it as they're dead. It means that they transcend. And so that gives the person who is on the dying side a little bit of peace, but it also gives the family a little bit of peace as well. But because it means that there's continuousness in their existence. Yeah. Okay. So the idea of this persistent vegetative state, how do I know if someone's alive or dead in this persistent vegetative state? Breathing is a reflex. Heartbeat is a reflex. They're still technically biologically alive, and that's why they're not passed away. Brain activity. So there's a couple of really cool, I talked about this before, didn't I? With a lady in a coma, and they showed her wife, they showed her house. Did I talk about this yet? Half people said yes, half people said no, so I'll say it again real quick. So basically, it's a little brain scanner that I have that I stuck on one of your heads, and we have it sitting on the person who's in the vegetative state. And I show them a picture. If the person can respond with their brain activity, the same way the person in here moved the cube around, they're still alive and they're still conscious. They're able to consciously do something. What if they don't respond at all on their brain? We call it brain dead. And that person becomes a beating heart cadaver, and which their body parts get used for medical reasons. Anyway, so let's get past the icky parts. We don't want to talk about persistent vegetative states anymore because that's depressing. So let's look at your sleep. Okay, so it's really interesting is a lot of times if you have a very severe injury, especially a brain injury, they actually put you in not a persistent vegetative state, but they put you in what's called a coma. A coma is different than a persistent vegetative state. A coma is short term. Usually use the word heavy sedation. when someone's in a coma or heavy sedation, they're not just the body responding, but their consciousness is still there. My brother-in-law got smooshed by a car years ago when he was riding his bicycle, and they put him under a drug-induced coma to let the brain heal, because if they didn't put him in a coma, he'd have multiple seizures. So they kept the brain from seizing by adding the medicine. If anybody gets a really severe concussion, sometimes they will do this to you. They will give you an anesthesia after the concussion so that you don't have seizures after the concussion. Seizures are really bad for your brain. They kind of rewire your brain. Okay, so anyway, again, more positive. So, what's between sleep and mindfulness? That's the word I was looking for. Being aware. Awareness. Awareness is kind of complicated. So, I'm going to draw this over here just because I want to have it next to what we're talking about. Do you need to be conscious in order to learn? Here, prove it. You do not need to be conscious in order to learn. In fact, you can just barf out anything, and your cerebellum learns that that's not a good thing. Sometimes when people get pregnant, their blood sugar gets all cattywampus, gets weird. And when your blood sugar gets weird, it's called gestational diabetes. The problem if you have gestational diabetes is the fact that the baby is born very big. It gains lots of weight, which is difficult to deliver. B, the baby can be born with diabetes because it has too high a blood sugar all the time. So it's very important if the mom knows she has gestational diabetes. And it's also very important if the mom does have gestational diabetes that they test the blood sugar of the baby for the first 5 or 6 hours after it's born to make sure the baby's blood sugar is regulating okay. How do you take blood sugar? Little needle, stabby, stabby. Okay? And as you get older, you can just learn to stabby, stabby and find a spot that doesn't hurt and stab it and move on. Well, on a baby, the best place to stabby, stabby is at the heel of its foot. So they pick the heel of the foot and get a little blood from there. The baby goes, ow, quit it. It doesn't like it, it hurts. But it's important for the baby's health, so they do it. Babies that have been born to moms with gestational diabetes don't like doctors, don't like hospitals. Wait a second. Hour 2, stabby, stabby, stabby. Where's the baby when it's getting stabby, stabby, stabby? In the hospital. The smell, the sound, all that stuff the baby can perceive. When the person is 20 years old and you have to go to the doctor, you walk in there, how do you feel immediately? Anxious. Your consciousness says, I don't like doctors. Why don't you like doctors? Okay, if we know the true contingency, we would say because you were conditioned by getting stabby, stabby, stabby by the doctor when you were young. But if you don't know the conditioning, you don't know your story, what do you say? I don't like doctors. Because your consciousness is only aware of what you become aware of. You're only awake when you know you're awake. This is the idea of becoming mindful. Mindfulness is understanding why you're feeling a certain way. Why are some people afraid of bugs? How would you find out why you're afraid of bugs? What do you mean? In fact, if you're afraid of bugs, you definitely don't need a bug. But what do you need to find out? I keep saying this word. I'm going to write it in sparkly font because it's really important. The story. Can somebody tell me what a story is? What is a story? So how do you explain an event? What do you have to do to an event to explain it? You can't experience the past again. I'm playing it at the beginning. I was playing you a story. Wait, somebody said details. Okay. Are details the story? My daughter comes home from school and says, "Ha! Flaming Hot Cheeto got kicked out of class again today." My wife, my son, and myself all look at her going, should we ask or just let it go? Who's Flaming Hot Cheeto? Oh, he's a non-binary person in my class, and he doesn't want to be called he or she, so it's a boy. And so he wants to be called Flaming Hot Cheeto. Okay, that explains one detail of the story. I go, which class? Physics. Okay. And then so after 15 or 20 minutes of questioning, I can put it into a logical story. There's a boy who loves to irritate the physics professor. Okay? And by irritating the physics professor always says, or physics teacher I should say, he always says, "Ladies and gentlemen." And the student, of course, being obstreperous, yells, "I'm not a lady or a gentleman, I'm a Flaming Hot Cheeto. I'm non-binary." So now the teacher says, "Ladies, gentlemen, and Flaming Hot Cheetos." Because he doesn't care. And so because the teacher didn't get upset by that, Flaming Hot Cheeto has to do lots of other things to cause the teacher to become upset. Because when the teacher becomes upset, he doesn't have to learn physics. Brilliant. Anyway, so now that I've explained the story to you, when I said Flaming Hot Cheeto gets kicked out of class again, you understand, because what you have is not just the details, what's important. The context, that's what the story provides. As soon as you tell the story, one of my students said, "I hate tomatoes." I go, "What about tomatoes?" Everything about tomatoes. Because what is the story that their consciousness has? I hate tomatoes. Flaming Hot Cheeto got kicked out of class today. There's my story. But do they know the real reason why they hate tomatoes? Maybe not. Does anybody hate tomatoes in here? Okay, you got a couple of them. Okay, so why do you hate tomatoes? Okay, they're just disgusting. Your story just says you think of tomatoes and you can see your nose wrinkle right away. Same thing? Okay, so do you ketchup or tomato sauce? No. They're different. Okay? And so we go, so if you were to have a stewed tomato, which is basically tomato sauce, is that disgusting or okay? Okay. So all you do is you take stewed tomatoes and smush them, and that's tomato sauce. It's so gross. Okay. So the idea of what I do is by asking questions about details, and then I can actually present her with different, like a sun-dried tomato. What's the big thing in your mind? No. Okay. So it's probably something to do with the tomato itself, not the tomato flavor. So we could set up a series of experiments to find out exactly what about the tomato. Can you eat a passion fruit? They're purple and they're about this big. You cut them in half, and the seeds are like chia seeds inside, except they're really sweet. They're really deep. So each seed, it looks like a tadpole egg inside, and it's covered with kind of a slime. You eat it with a spoon. Sounds good or gross? Yeah, so it's weird. So it's very similar to the seeds inside of a tomato. So where am I going with this, by the way? I'm trying to see, is it the gooiness of it? Is that what gets you? Yeah, it's the jelliness of it that gets some people. Like my father-in-law cannot stand, he loves tomatoes, he just can't stand the jelliness of tomatoes. Okay? Or some people don't like the texture of the skin, the crunchy, hard texture of the skin, and that the tomato flavor itself becomes the conditioned stimulus. So what happens is the more you understand the context of your situation, the easier it is to rebuild the story. Here's what's really crazy about this. When you become conscious of the reasons why you don't like something, does that change if you like it or not? If you change the understanding, if you just change your consciousness, your mindfulness of the stimuli, does that change the way you learn? Okay, so this morning, right out lying in front of the gym, it's a homeless person, just completely on the sidewalk, face down. We're looking, he's not moving, he has a dog, and we didn't want to go nudge him to see if he's alive or not because the dog didn't want us to go next to him. And so we're like, crap. So we just called the 911 right across the street. The policeman goes over, you know, people sleep on the streets all the time in this neighborhood. Like, thank you, condescending officer. We live in this neighborhood. We know. We were concerned that he wasn't breathing. Well, the police guy was nice. The fireman was good. Anyway, so he was fine. He was just sleeping. He had peed all over himself too. So it's a hard space to be in, and but by understanding that, if it's just one of the people we typically see sleeping there, would we have called the paramedics? No, because there's a lady that sleeps across the street a lot, and there's a couple other people that we know pretty well because we see them quite often. But this was a person we've never seen before, just in case we see him again. His name is Alex. And I didn't get the dog's name. But, well, you know, people don't ask what your dog's name is. You should. Dog is super nice. Okay, so you'll sit there, sitting beside him, waiting for him to sleep it off, and you can, good dog. Okay. So, but once you start understanding a story, once you start getting a context, does it change your behavior? This is the problem with behaviorism. This little formula is always true. The contingencies that you learn are based on this formula, always, until you become aware of the context. My son and I were talking about slot machines this morning, because he has one of his little video games. You can play slot machines to win car parts to whatever. And he goes, so how does a slot machine actually work? So we're going through that in Las Vegas. Anybody play slots in Vegas? I don't know if they have this. I've never been to one of the casinos here. So what they do is, it's really simple. It's a spinny wheels and a lot of electronic ones. They just put up 3 or 4 things, and if you get 3 out of the 4 or 4 out of the 4, you get money. The more complicated the combination, the more money you get. And so he was talking about, he was like, I don't get it. I'm like, well, what if it gives you 1 and 2, but then doesn't give you the other 2? He goes, oh, I get mad. Because what do you want? All of them. And so, what's the contingency that people start to develop? What do they start thinking? And this is where gambling comes from. I'll win next time. Does next time ever happen? This is where the gambling habit comes into mind. I will win next time. That gambler's fallacy is, if I've lost 1,000 times in a row, I'm doomed. Because the story that you get taught is, I have to play more to get rewarded. And it's kind of funny watching some old people. We used to go to Vegas every so often. I can't stand it at this point in my life, but when we were younger, it was soon to be fun. And my buddy Mike and I would always bring like $60 and gamble $60. And when we ran out of our $60, we were done. One time we actually came home with like 300 bucks. And the only reason we came home with 300 bucks is because we put the quarters in left over from the Circus buffet. Yeah, sorry. Put the quarters in for change on the way out, and we hit a jackpot of like $800 or something. Just randomly putting it in a machine. So we gambled for a little while, but just paid our hotel bill and paid everything else, and then actually bought food that wasn't disgusting the second night. And then we came home with money. But every other time I've been there, what's happened? We lost. So we've spent way more than the money that we won. But what do people remember? We won. And it's really fun when the machine starts just kicking out tons and tons of quarters. And all of a sudden, this little guy with a little briefcase shows up next to you. Hi. And then he cleans up all the coins, and then he escorts us over to the little booth, and they gave us the money. Because they don't have like $600 for the quarters in one of those machines. Or they might, actually, I don't know. So anyway, so what's interesting is that if you remember the story, you remember the context, that's the contingency. Let me show you a quick little video that explains this too, as well. Okay, we use this term that he's describing, an extension of his senses. This is supposed to go to that little window. Please? There you go. No pokey there. It's called Umwelt. Umwelt is a German word. U-M-W-E-L-T. Okay, Umwelt is... Yes, Umwelt. Okay. My brain thinks it's U-A-T. In German they sound the same. But this is your sensory experience. This is your sensory Umwelt. Is this guy nuts, or is this guy actually onto something? This is exactly how you learn to drive your car. Does the car become your Umwelt? Do you think about turning when you're driving, or do you just think about, I need the car to go over there? You just think, I need to go over there. And your body goes, I got it, and figures out how to get the car to go one way or the other. If anybody plays Forza in here, I need someone to come and play my video game in my office for a while to level up so we can get more cars and tracks open. I don't have time. So if somebody wants to sit and drive for an hour or two in my office, if you play Forza, if you don't, even if you suck at it, you just have to go and do a bunch of stuff. If anybody wants to do that and practice, because the more you drive, what happens to your Umwelt? Your sensory world around you. You become unconscious of your Umwelt. In other words, it becomes a perception. You stop becoming conscious of it and you just, what did he say? Feel it. So the more you expand your Umwelt, the more you expand your senses, which becomes really important in a bit, the more you expand your senses, the actually less you pay attention to. So let's get back really quickly to this idea. He said something that was kind of interesting. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on sleep a little bit. What's dreaming? So what if you're blind? Do you see pictures in your dream? Turns out people who have seen and then became blind still see pictures in their dreams. People that were born without vision, what do they dream about? It's not nonsense. Oh, noises. I thought you said nonsense. Oh, it's kind of unkind. Okay, so I'm going to draw this little line up here. So we're going to expand sleep into different stages of sleep. Okay, the lightest sleep that you're in is dreaming. And we decide if you're dreaming or not by looking at the brain activity. So we're going to write deep sleep down here. So I'm going to write this word called delta with an extra letter at the end, just for no good reason. Delta is a type of sleep where you have slow, large brainwaves. So they kind of look like this. So if I were to plug someone in the brain scanner and they were to fall asleep, and we're watching them fall asleep, and then eventually they get to, their brainwaves look like this. This is what we call deep sleep, or delta sleep. This is when you walk in your sleep, this is when you talk in your sleep. If anybody's ever had an 8-year-old in their space, they go into delta sleep almost all night. And like, you cannot wake them up. Do you have one of these? So like, they'll fall asleep in the car on the way home. And you just like, you drag them out of bed, they're like, you can even stand them up, and and it's really fun because whenever the kids are going through these growth spurts, you see these large bursts of delta sleep. Delta sleep is really important for you. You need to get delta sleep every night because this is when your body grows. This is where your body gets healthy. When you're sick, you spend more time in this delta sleep because your immune system facilitates this deep sleep. Probably the reason that I got sick, A, because I collected papers from you. It's all your fault. Second thing, it's Monday and Tuesday night, I did not sleep well. I blame my wife for watching stupid TV show. It's an unbelievable show. I couldn't sleep. And then I was grinding my teeth at night, which means I was stressed about something, and so I just couldn't sleep Monday and Tuesday night. So what happened Tuesday afternoon? My immune system gets down, and because I collected papers from you Monday, the germs came in, my immune system's down, toast. So this deep sleep is really important for you. Especially kids that are growing fast go a lot of delta sleep. What part of your night is delta sleep? You spend about the first half of your night in delta sleep. This is why a lot of times you close your eyes, you open your eyes, and the world has completely changed. Because your body goes into this super deep sleep. When you try to wake somebody up in deep sleep, they cannot wake up. They will talk to you, but they can't wake up. You can have full-on conversations with someone in delta sleep, but they are not there. It's just repetitive behaviors that are produced. It's very entertaining. There's evidence of people engaging in marital relations during deep sleep. Yeah. Sound asleep, but because they can move, they can and do, and yeah. There's also, my favorite one is asleep eating. People get up and go to the kitchen and start eating in their sleep. Yeah, you kind of, and it's, the one lady, Carol LeBeau, I don't know if she's still around. I mean, she was the health reporter for Channel 10 News for like ever. She's really good friends with one of our history professors. She was talking to us at a social event, and she was saying, yeah, they did a whole story on people sleep eating. And this one woman was upset that she kept gaining weight, and the doctors kept saying, you're just eating too much. And she goes, no, I'm not. So they set up cameras around her house. And as soon as her brain went into slow wave sleep, she kind of got up and walked into the kitchen and like would just munch on things. She ate like half a bag of flour. They get a glass of water with that. And it's like, and you can imagine, she's not eating because she's hungry. She's not eating because she wants food. It's just, she is a stress eater. And because she's a stress eater, when she's stressed, what motor program gets activated? The eating one. My favorite one is, anybody have a restless leg in here? Hopefully you don't have a partner with a restless leg, but when you get into delta sleep, you slowly walk in your bed. You're sideways or whatever else, and then you wake up and you're freezing and all the covers are smooshed at the bottom of the bed. Yeah, okay. So that's because while you're in deep sleep, you're just moving around. Usually that's a sign of anxiety. So if you have this, what do you need to become mindful of? Something's bugging you in the other part of your life, the conscious part of your life. But the nice thing is you don't know what's bugging you in your conscious part of your life because your consciousness is all focused on the context and the story that it tells itself, not necessarily reality. That's why we need Danas in the world to unpack your reality and show you, hey, maybe it's option B. No, it's not option B. Denial is great. Option B? Moving on. Okay, so what's between dreaming and delta sleep? We call it stage 1 and stage 2 sleep. It's called light sleep. It absolutely sucks to spend a night in light sleep. I can easily describe what a night in light sleep was because that was Monday. Close your eyes, open your eyes, look at the clock, it's 10 minutes later. Close your eyes, open your eyes, look at the clock, it's 10 minutes later. Are you really asleep? No. You're fighting it in here now. I got you. So she's going like this. So right when you fade, sorry, I can see your eyes. Right as you start, as somebody always does it during this class, it's great. I will start talking slowly. And okay, so, but as you close your eyes, as my voice fades out, that's stage 1. How do we know you're asleep? You lose consciousness just that little bit. Hopefully this doesn't happen to you driving, but that's why the dots are on the freeway. In Vermont, they don't have dots on the freeway. But they also have these things called a ditch on either side of the road. There's these big culverts on either side of the road. What are those culverts for? To catch sleepy drivers. And the big ditches on the side of the road is that when the car goes into them, the ditches are engineered so the car just kind of settles at the bottom of the ditch so you have a chance to wake up. Very rarely will a car go off the ditch and then off the other side of the ditch. Generally when someone's driving way too fast does that happen. And it makes a very exciting day for the Vermont kids to go look at the car in the field. Okay, but in California, what's on either side of the freeway? Houses, concrete, things that smash your car. They don't want you to drift off the freeway. So what do they put between all the lanes? Wake up dots. Or pay attention dots. We call it driving by braille. Why do so many people crash in the 94 out for example? 2-lane road, no dots. You fall asleep, you're either into the other lane or you're into the trees. Right. Wildcat Canyon or Slaughterhouse Canyon, the 2 roads up to Ramona. Same thing, yeah. The freeway, yeah, freeway dots. Yeah. Yeah, the rumble are called rumble strips. Yeah, and they also put them in the 395. They're also between the lanes, so they let you know if you're drifting across either side. Now, most of the highways are now divided because people are hammered, so they pay attention to the dots. No, because when you're hammered, you're actually very similar to stage 2 sleep. Are you conscious? Most of the time in stage 1 or stage 2 sleep, you have no consciousness of your unconsciousness. You have no idea that you've fallen asleep. When you're in deep sleep, do you know you're asleep? Because when someone wakes you up, you're like, I was sleeping. Has anybody answered the phone in their sleep in here? That's delta sleep. Okay? If I startle you in stage 1 or stage 2, usually you go, and that's why no one's done that in here yet, but every so often you get the flail, yeah. Okay, so, I'm glad you asked that. The difference between the two is a brain wave called theta. Okay, so the way we look at whether you're in stage 1 or stage 2, so here's your wide awake brain, like we saw with her brain up on the screen. You saw the wide awake brain, and every so often you have these little bursts. These little bursts are called sleep spindles, or theta waves. When these theta waves get produced, your consciousness lapses for that second. It's actually very similar to when I had Arthur's brain up on the machine, and Arthur had these big gaps, these big bursts of theta activity while he was fully conscious. That was under the influence of THC. Okay? And so the more theta bursts that you have, the more asleep you get. And so what happens is eventually the theta bursts become consistent, which is stage 2. Stage 1 is off and on, theta, wide awake. And then eventually they slow down and become delta. But something happens. In the second half of your night, half of your night you spend in what's called REM. In other words, your brain waves are looking like this. Do you remember if I could probably pull it up, but do you remember the top and the bottom of the brain scanner when she was plugged in? When she blinked her eyes, you saw these down here spike up and down. Whenever she looked around, you could see her eyes moving all over the place. So the one at the top and the one at the bottom were the measures of her eyes. So I can actually put 2 electrodes on your head and have you go to sleep. And as soon as you go into REM sleep or dream, your eyeball, which I'll draw in a different color here, does this. What's your brain doing? Your brain is becoming fully active and your eyeballs are looking around. This is so cool. I'll draw the pathway and how this works. But after a period of time in delta, your brain kind of gets bored. Okay? Your brain actually shrinks during delta sleep. It actually contracts a little bit. When your brain shrinks, fluid flows throughout your brain. No, that's usually because your body collapses all the fluid. Yeah. That's just water retention. I still don't have that. I keep trying. Okay, now. So, when you go through this delta sleep, your brain is constantly growing and resting and fleshing itself out. And getting rid of all its waste. But then, after a period of time of doing this, you go back into stage 1 or stage 2. A lot of people, about halfway through the night, wake up. It's very normal to wake up about halfway through the night. You just wake up. And that's because as you go back up to stage 1, if there's anything that's slightly uncomfortable in stage 1, you wake up. How many people wake up halfway through the night here? Okay, about half of you so far. So that's very normal. And a lot of people don't like it because they're like, oh crap, now I can't go back to sleep. So what you need to think about is now that you become conscious and mindful, you think, oh, I'm supposed to wake up at this time. You are. The worst part is when you start thinking too much at that point. Yeah, so you start hypermentation. You overthink at that time. So as opposed to hyperthinking at that time, one of the best things to do is get up, get a glass of water, go to the bathroom, whether you have to or not. Everybody can. But then, just lay back down and say, I have my REM sleep coming up. As opposed to going, oh, I hope I can go back to sleep, you change the context of the story. Oh, yay, REM sleep's coming. Because what happens on the whole second half of the night is REM sleep. Now, during REM sleep, it's your mind that rests. During REM sleep, your mind gets rested. If you don't get REM sleep, your mind is bad the next day. So I'm going to draw REM sleep a little bit further down here. How many hours a night should you sleep? How do you know you slept enough? This is so stupid how easy this is. How do you know you've slept enough? You're not tired. With an asterisk. If you have a disorder called depression, if you have a sleep apnea, it's a problem breathing while sleeping like I do when I'm sick, you can sleep a lot but not sleep enough. So if you have a lot of stress in your life, you can get something called insomnia. Insomnia is where you can't sleep. And if you can't sleep, yeah. Sure. So there's a lot of, so they're super deep sleep, but you can't wake them up, right? They're like really, really deep sleep and you can't wake them up, or they can't get all the way down into deep sleep. Which one? Oh, yeah. Okay, so generally, you have to put the asterisk. Sleep is a good indication of health. So if there's some underlying health reason behind it, does that affect the person's sleep? Yeah. So just if someone goes into super deep sleep and they can't be woken up, usually that's some sort of more serious medical thing. But there are times where people have thought that someone put a curse on them. It's actually called voodoo death. Have you ever heard of this? Where if you think someone's putting a curse on you, in the science world, curse, whatever. But if you believe it, what happens? Some people's hearts will stop. So, because they're so scared that they stop. So it's a really difficult situation because as soon as you start getting into the very strange things that happen, you have to look at the entire context and the entire story to exactly figure out what's going on. But most of us, most humans, go through this night of sleep without much of a problem whatsoever. But we talk about in here, we talk about narcolepsy. Do you know what narcolepsy is? Yeah, well, it's not without warning. It's when put under demand or put under stress. So that can happen. You can literally just shut down, and your body goes into a state very similar to REM. Other things, when anybody ever stop breathing while they're sleeping in here? A lot of people it happens. So that's something that can be very scary. If you wake up and you're not breathing, you actually are breathing, you're just not consciously aware of it. It's unconsciously controlled. So it feels like I'm suffocating. I can't move. I'm paralyzed. I'm going to die. Wait. Okay. And then you can't go back to sleep because what is the story your brain tells itself? Some demon. Oh, I like that one. I hadn't thought about that. No, but I'm dying. What's wrong with me? Usually what people say. Or demons chasing that. I pictured it in my head. Okay, sorry. Now, how do you know? By the way, if you ever have that, it's called sleep paralysis. I'll explain that in just a minute. Don't worry about it. Is it bad for you? No. All it means is you're waking up while you're dreaming. That's all it means. That's it. Okay, so if you wake up and you're not tired the next day, you got what's called a good night's sleep. I know that's not rocket science, but that's a lot of health psychology's non-rocket science. It's kind of balanced. So what if you deprive yourself? What if you go to sleep really late every night? What part of sleep do you deprive yourself of? If you go to sleep late every night, you deprive yourself of delta sleep. First half is delta, deep sleep. We also call it stage 3 and 4. If you go to bed really late a lot, what happens is you start depriving yourself of delta sleep. If you get up too early a lot, what do you deprive yourself of? REM sleep. Okay, so brace yourself. How many nights of lack of REM sleep does it take to cause problems? Yeah, 2 or 3. 2 or 3 nights of REM sleep before you notice your mind having issues. 2 or 3 nights missing REM sleep. Yeah. REM stands for dreaming. It's called rapid eye movement. This is when you dream. Okay. So, I just want to go back to the main point of this. Which one is a biological drive? REM sleep or delta sleep? Delta sleep keeps your body alive. REM sleep keeps your mind alive. Actually, stage 3 and stage 4? Yeah. Stage 3, right angle 8. Okay. Stage 3 and stage 4. I'll clear it up. So sometimes you'll hear people use the word stages when they talk about sleep. I just want you to have that. Okay. REM sleep is the most important for your mind. REM sleep is the most important for your mind. If you go one night without REM sleep, what happens the next night? What happens the next night if you miss REM sleep? You get more the next night. So if anybody's ever had a cold and you take like the Tylenol or you take the Theraflu and you have like wacky ass dreams all night, the next night, why do you think you've had those wacky dreams the next night? You may have slept the whole night before, but if you're sick, you spend the entire night in delta. Whenever the fever breaks, whenever your sickness ends, most people experience this huge, wide area of dreaming. If it feels like you're dreaming for hours, are you? Yeah, dreams run in real time. Dreams run in real time. So what the heck is a dream? Remember, I explain things in the context because that's my understanding of the brain. We have to look at the brain. What's a dream? Come on, we got 5 minutes. What's a dream? Okay, you just said it. That's what I'm looking for. Most dreams are actually a story, even though they don't make sense. I had a dream the other night, this was Sunday night, that I was walking around the block and the neighbor had a bunch of clay on the side of his house and somebody was playing with the clay and it was gray clay and we were playing with all the clay and I realized, oh, I gotta go get the kids off to school. My kids, I'm wearing flip-flops and I got clay all over me and wearing my workout clothes and they're all standing in front of the house ready to go to school. I hadn't even made their lunches yet. And I'm like trying to go into the kitchen, like I gotta make lunches, and I gotta get dressed because I have to leave to go to work too. And I remember standing at the kitchen counter, I can see everything at the kitchen counter, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get everything done. And so when I wake up, because that's my standard Monday morning. It's always a pain in the ass. What am I going to make for the kids' food? And then my kids complain that their food's not good, so I yell at them, make your own damn food. Then they don't, then they're hungry and they're crabby, and I feel bad, so I make them food. Hate being a parent. Okay. I wish I could be a detached parent. Feed yourself, kids. I'm going to the bar. Okay, so. It's so easy as a parent. Okay. So, again, it's a story. So what happens is your dream becomes a story. It has a beginning, a middle, an end. This is exactly what you're exercising. Your mind is a story. Your mind, your perspective is a story. How you remember that story, does it change the meaning of the story? I had a dream that we were on this big hill. There's this thing in Vermont that people do. It's called a hunting truck. A hunting truck is basically a Jeep with a seat and a steering wheel on it and then a big platform. And you drive it out into a field, and then the people stand on top of the platform and trying to balance and then look for things to shoot and kill. In the South, they call them swamp buggies. In Vermont, they call them hunting truck. So I had a dream that I was driving. We have a Jeep at the time, so I took my Jeep apart and made a hunting truck out of it, and we were driving it down a big hill, and I thought my son had been taken by red ants. And there was these giant red ants down there, and I thought, oh my gosh, my son was taken by ants. It was horrifying. And then when we got back up the hill, driving this Jeep without a roof on it, or just without a Jeep on it, it was just like the Jeep frame, I realized it was the dog that got taken by the ants, not my son. And all seemed better? Why do I still remember that dream? A weird is minimal for dreams. Dreams are wacky. But why do I still remember it? Because when my son was little, he had bad croup. And he was in the hospital once or twice for bad croup, which is terrifying of a parent thinking you might lose a child. That's why I feel so bad for Diana. And because her son, she just lost her son. We all feel really bad for that. Okay? And so, with the idea of losing my son, that triggered such a strong emotion. How come I can still tell the story of something that never ever happened? Because it activated my memory circuits of my brain. Dreams don't necessarily mimic life, but they create life. So I just want to show you in the last minute here how dreams go on. And I want you to have questions for dreams for Monday. But, so your pons down here send signals up to your thalamus, and then it sends it to your occipital lobe. Your body produces natural hallucinogen. It's very similar to the chemical DMT. And this natural hallucinogen gets put up into your brain and causes you to hallucinate while you're sleeping. Vivid hallucinations. You hear things in your dreams. Yeah, you have conversations in your dreams. You recognize people, but even though you can't really see what they look like, you know it's them. Activating all sorts of crazy parts of your brain. And the other part, and then who makes the story out of it? Your left prefrontal cortex creates the story. This is where your story is. Just for the record, this is also where depression is. A lot of people who suffer from depression don't dream as much. They sleep more, but spend more time in delta sleep and less time in REM sleep. Interesting. Okay, next class, please come in with some questions about sleeping and dreaming.